Many Canadian businesses are on edge today. There are just hours to spare for Canada to strike a trade deal with the United States before punishing new tariffs take effect. And that includes my next guest. Jean-Philippe Robert is the president of Quartz Co, a sustainable Canadian outerwear company. And we've reached him in Knowlton, Quebec. Thank you so much for joining us, Jean.
Thanks so much for having me.
So first, I want to begin with just sort of getting some context here. In terms of the U.S. market, just how much will this impact your business?
So right now we're at 15% of our total sales that go down to the U.S. We're lucky enough to have worked on diversification, geographical diversification. Since we bought the company 10 years ago, there's a large appetite in Europe and Asia for outerwear. But, U.S. remain a very important market at 15%. In retail, every sale counts. And it's a huge potential market also for the growth of the business.
So now, as we approach this trade deadline, how have you been preparing for that? What's your plan if the tariff comes into effect?
Well, the number one thing we can do is go harder at the Canadian market. And this is something we've been advocating for the past, ever since this trade war started. Just important for Canadians to buy Canadian and really to be conscious when they make purchase decisions. So that's something we can all work on, I think. So we're investing in Canada, that's for sure. And then, we're a bit more aggressive with the rest of our other markets, spending more, investing more, before that noise kind of fades down with the U.S.
As you mentioned, however, of course, as part of your sales, 15% is not a minuscule chunk by any stretch of the imagination. So how will you continue to sell to your U.S. customers, if that's even a possibility? What have you heard from them? Because you might be having to on-pass that 50% tariff onto them.
Yeah, that's a great question because the U.S. consumer doesn't quite understand why there's inflation on our prices. So when we have these conversations, either with stores or when we have consumers shopping directly on our e-com, they don't quite understand why we have to hike the prices so up. And we say it's out of our control. We try to explain. But it's interesting to me that the American consumer doesn't really get why. Our jackets, made in Canada jackets, sell between $1,000 and $1,500. So you can only imagine that a 50% increase on top of that is a significant chunk of the price. So really hard conversations to have. In some cases, we'll have to, shut down some items on the website, which we did from time to time during this trade war already. And we kind of hope that the Canadian government will come to a resolution with the U.S. government so we can start shipping again, because at 50%, it's really, really high. So it's hard to find a way around, really.
So when you're saying that during different sort of portions of this trade war, you've had to shut down sort of part of the sales to the United States, is that primarily because with that 50% tariff rate or whatever the previous tariff rate was for your particular product, U.S. consumers were just not buying in anymore? There was such a significant drop in the sales south of the border?
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of push, and it starts. We're a wholesale business, so we sell. We sell to retailers within the reseller business. So that's number one. So you can it's B2B conversations that you need to have, and then it's almost impossible then to ship.
When you do try to explain why this sort of cost is being on-passed, what sort of response do you get?
Well, it seems like everyone's kind of passing the ball to each other and kind of it's all our control, right? Even my retailers, it is out of their control, and they're strongly against it because it affects their business, not only with my brand, but with all the other brands that they're carrying in their store. So it really affects the business. It's a big disruptor. Doesn't allow them to invest, to plan, just as we do. So I think that's something that our negotiation team has to tell the other side, that the Americans don't really want it. They're being forced to live with it.
Finally, I wanted to ask you, certainly the timing of all of this matters. Retailers are frequently a season ahead when it comes to supplying and sales, and we are approaching the winter sale period as well. How much of a hit do you think your business could potentially take if these tariffs go into play?
As I mentioned, it's 15%. I think it's going to be this 15% can come down to zero if the tariffs do come into effect. The retail business, as you mentioned, are planning one season in advance. So we produced the past 6 months to ship basically in the next 2 weeks and over the next couple of months. So it means that the inventory will remain higher. It creates all sorts of problems on cash flow, on future production, and all these sorts of things. And I know we're not the only company in that situation. So very worrying. We're not panicking yet. We think that Canada can prevail, and this has been the case in this trade war since the beginning. So we still have hope that there will be a solution.
Okay, well, Jean-Philippe, I want to thank you so much for this conversation. We appreciate hearing from businesses and how they are bracing for this deadline as well. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
That is Jean-Philippe Robert. He is the president of Quartz Co, and we reached him today in Knowlton, Quebec. Thanks again.